Declaration of Non-Consent and Independence. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of humankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal and sovereign, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among the people, deriving their just powers solely from the consent of the governed, that when any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that humankind is more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of the people of these states, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present federal government system and its political class is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations of its own laws and constitution, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the people and these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. It hath turned this once great republic into that which is of lesser status, a democracy, by elevating its own status to that above the people and the individual. It hath taken ownership over the laws of nature and nature's God, and hath treated the people such as children, needing its guidance, its care, and its consent for every aspect of daily life. In the well of the Senate, one even uttered the words,
"In America, we give our citizens rights."
Many a tyrant and despot hath declared the same over their citizens. It hath granted full power over the public treasury to a privately owned bank, and hath deviously given it a name such as to deliberately mislead the people. The Federal Reserve is a direct violation of public trust, confidence, and the Constitution. Furthermore, it borrows money from this private bank in the people's name at interest. That interest is then paid to the undisclosed owners for their personal and private gain, all at the people's expense. It hath completely plundered the public treasury by allowing this private company to issue paper money debt that is not tied to gold or silver, as its own constitution requires. It hath lied to the people to its own benefit and to the benefit of those to whom it titles in its name. Facts well known to all, even the most uneducated of the people, but most innumerable to list herein. In the most treasonous of manners, it supports and supplies its assault against the people with the wealth it hath stolen from them through unfair and illegal taxes and fees. It supported and assisted in the illegal seizure of gold from the people through a treasonous and unconstitutional executive order, which it endorsed with an equally treasonous and unconstitutional law. It rounded up large portions of the people and placed them in what can only be described as prison camps, due solely to their ethnicity, as opposed to any crime committed. Its leaders have issued many other executive orders, including those that give the chief executive alone the power to suspend the Constitution and enact martial law over the people and states, with its own representatives and the people powerless against it. Martial law was never consented to, hath no basis in constitutional law, and is an anathema to freedom itself. It hath enacted a multitude of treasonous, treacherous, and unconstitutional laws that steal freedoms, liberties, and wealth from the people. For the treasonous manner in which it intentionally misleads the people through the naming of these laws. Such is the case with the Patriot Act, a word used to describe our most treasured fighters for freedom, used to cloak a law that takes away those same freedoms, is treasonous indeed. This law and its enforcement violates multiple principles of its foundation and shames the memories of all dead patriots by allowing federal agents to write their own warrants and to conduct illegal search and seizure of homes, records, phones, computers, and vehicles with no jurisdictional restraints whatsoever. It hath usurped the Constitution, removing rights specifically enumerated for protection, a most treasonous act. Its leaders hath approved torture of the people and the people of foreign lands, in direct violation of its Constitution, treaties it hath signed in the people's name, nature's law, and morality. Its leaders hath taken the nation to war without consent of its own representatives, or of the people themselves. For the illegal and treasonous act of sending in armed forces to illegally disarm the people by force after Hurricane Katrina, leaving them without the right or power of self-defense.
We shoot in America.
Yeah.
For conducting harmful and murderous medical experiments on the people without their consent, permission, and most criminally, without their knowledge. Its leaders have declared that they will imprison the people preventatively if it deems them as suspicious, without the approval of judges or having obtained a conviction for a crime. It willingly, intentionally, and criminally spends more than it takes in, creating public debt that cannot be repaid without more taxation, borrowing, and debt creation. This treasonous activity has taken place for more than 100 years with no end in sight. As babies leave the womb, they are assigned their portion of the federal debt before they have taken their initial breath of life. The calculation of their worth to the federal system is also tallied and monetized, creating debt slaves of the people from birth. It hath imprisoned more of the people in the land of the free than all other nations of the earth combined, more than half for victimless activities protected by the Constitution itself, but labeled and enforced as crimes anyway. For granting away commercial rights and freedoms of the people and destroying the national economy through ill-advised and illegal trade agreements to the benefit of the private owners of the Federal Reserve, itself, the political class, and international corporations, not the people. It passes laws requiring the people to engage in commerce against their will under penalty of taxation and imprisonment, requiring the people to enter into private contracts for large sums of money with private companies and corporations that fund this federal system and the political class that rule it. A devious and conspiratorial endeavor, to be sure. For the involuntary conscription of at least 3 generations of the people to military service. For spilling the blood of the people in multiple undeclared wars that have no basis in self-defense nor in defense of the people's property. Our most cherished children, those not even old enough to walk, are subjected to illegal, immoral, and unnatural searches of their most intimate private areas by its agents. The political class and their 2 parties, Democrats and Republicans, have conducted themselves in such manners to only be described as criminal and treasonous. The power they have surreptitiously stolen from the people and granted upon themselves over elections has usurped the true meaning of democracy, thus allowing 1/6 of the people to control the rest through their electoral schemes backed with force from the government. The people have lost all trust and confidence in this federal system of government and the political class that has controlled it for over a century. Its justice no longer serves the people. Their long history of supporting the political class and its agenda hath rendered it ineffective and incapable of protecting the rights and freedoms of a truly free people. Consent to be governed by this federal system and the political class has been withdrawn in numbers that represent more than 2/3 of the entire population. Finally, and most treasonous of all, having already obtained a formidable case against its existence, it hath bypassed all laws, constitutional, common, and moral alike, and with no proof whatsoever as to any crime, either planned or committed, its chief executive hath granted itself the power to assassinate, murder, or execute any of the people, solely by deeming them a suspicious threat to the federal system. Meanwhile, the political class and the legislature look the other way, too busy feeding off the public trough, as the judicial branch sits back and waits for a citizen to be murdered. Proof, in one instance, that this three-branch federal system and the political class are unfit, untrustworthy, and criminally treasonous in their actions and inactions. In every state of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A system whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the system of rule for a free people. Nor have we been wanting in our attentions to our political class brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their chief executive and legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our beginning as a nation and the constraints of government in the Constitution. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and support. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them, as we hold the rest of humankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. Consent having been withdrawn, we therefore, the people of the states in America, in General Congress, assembled through modern technology, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these states, solemnly publish and declare that these states are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the federal system, and that all political connection between them and the United States government is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.